You can download the project from the resources section, or you can just create a new project and use the third person template. I would recommend just creating a new project as a third person template and just follow along with what I do. So what we'll be doing is creating some poses and animations using Sequencer. If you prefer, you can use something else. You can use, let's say, Blender to create the animations if that's what you prefer or that's what you're familiar with. But for the sake of what we're doing, I would probably recommend just doing it in Unreal Engine, because making tweaks and just small changes and being able to preview it in the editor, I think has a lot of advantages, but that's up to you. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make it so that a character will look towards a specific point in the world, and we'll just move his head. We'll just procedurally move his head to point towards some arbitrary location in the world. So that's quite simple to do. And then what we'll do is we'll combine that where it drives an animation. So we'll have an animation where it blends from him looking left to looking right, so that we get more movement of the body. So it's not just his head that rotates, just a single bone. It's also the body moves as well. And this can be used for a lot of purposes, but this is going to be the simplest example. So anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new level, basic, just so we've got space. And I'm just going to save this, and I'm going to call it animation level, because we'll be doing animation in here as well. You can call that what you want, obviously. So if you go into the characters folder in content, mannequins, meshes, I'll be using SKM Mani Simple. And for most of this, you can follow along with whatever character you've got if you've got some skeletal mesh that you want to use. So just open that up. So that's this character that we'll be using. We're just going to rotate the head to point to some specific direction, and we're going to pass information in from the world about where that position is. Now you might already know how to do this. This isn't anything special. This is just, the first step, but some people might not know how to do it, so I'll just kind of talk through it. So first, right click on the skeletal mesh to create control rig. Open that up. So the forward solve runs every frame, and what it does is it takes in whatever animation is passed into control rig. So in this case, we're just previewing it as the default A pose of the character, and then we can modify it from here. Now all of this will be run through the animation blueprint. Now there already is an existing animation blueprint that we're going to use, and we're just going to plug in a control rig node which uses this control rig class into that animation blueprint. So if you go to the third person folder, open up the blueprints folder, and then BP third person character, select the character mesh, and I'm just going to switch this mesh from the Quinn model to the Mani model, because that's the one I've created a control rig for. It'll make little difference because they basically share the animations. So that's the one I'll be using. If you have the mesh selected, you should see on the right, animation mode is set to use animation blueprint, and underneath that you see the animation blueprint that it's using. So in this case, anim class is ABP unarmed_C. Just click on this magnifying glass to actually find it in the content browser. So it's hidden in content, characters, mannequins, anims, unarmed, and there it is. We're not going to modify this one. We're going to create a copy of that, just so we don't mess up the original in case we need to refer back to it or recover something. So what I'll do in the content folder is create a new folder, and we'll call this hybrid course. And we're just going to put things into here. So back to the unarmed folder, we want the ABP unarmed animation blueprint. We're going to drag that into hybrid course and choose copy here. Open up hybrid course, and you can see that there. I'll just rename this to hybrid anim BP. And now in the third person character, we're going to make sure that it's using that animation blueprint. So we want hybrid anim BP. So nothing should change. And if we play in the editor, we're still using just the default. Well, it's using our copy, but it's just the default animations. So the animation blueprint, if you open that up, this is the event graph, which passes some information through. So it's just saving some values, doing some calculations and so on. The main place that we're going to be making changes is in the anim graph. So on the left here, in the My Blueprint tab, you should see anim graph. Double click on that. And by the way, if you don't see any of the panels that I've got, because I'm not sure this is 100% set to default, or it might have some different config settings. So if you ever don't see anything that you should see, typically you can just go to Window and then just tick the thing that's missing, and you should see it. So the default anim graph, it's doing some locomotion, some movement animations, and figuring out which movement animation to use based on, let's say, the speed the character's moving at, the direction, and so on. Then it passes it through to here. This plays animations, so slot animations. And what that allows you to do is from the third person or any blueprint, you can tell the mesh to play an animation or to play a montage, and you can play it for a specific slot. So that's the equivalent of this being an animation node. And it's basically just any animation you want to play for it, you can tell it to play through this slot. We might go into that, we might not, who knows. So we probably will actually. And then it goes through this control rig node, and what this control rig node does, this is the inbuilt one. If you double click on that, you can open it up. It's doing a bunch of things. Mainly what it's doing is making the feet lock to the floor. We're not going to mess with this, so we can close that out. Then it goes to the output, and whatever's plugged into the output is the animation that you'll see. So for example, if I just drag in some random animation, plug that into the result, compile, you'll see that it's now playing that animation. If you select the node and click looping or loop animation, it just keeps playing that. So if we play in the editor, you'll see it's just playing that animation. That's just some, basic, in case you don't really know what the animation graph's for. I'll just connect it up back as it was. Now the character's stationary again. What we'll do is right click anywhere in the graph, search for control rig. And then what we want to do is pass in the pause from all this. So that's coming out from here into the source. Then this is the pause or animation or specific position at that time frame from this animation. And then control rig deals with that. So we could modify values, we could rotate the character, we could make them look up and down, whatever we're going to do. And then whatever outputs from this animation pause, we're going to plug that into the output pause. And that's what we'll actually eventually see. So if you compile, you'll see an error. And that's because we need to tell it what control rig class to use. So we just created a control rig class. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to rename this just so that we can find it easier. So in our character mannequins meshes folder, we created this control rig. If you didn't follow that step for whatever reason, we're just right clicking on the skeleton mesh, create control rig. So I'll just rename this, and I'll rename it to hybrid control rig. And I'm going to drag that into our hybrid course folder and just do move here this time. So we don't need to copy it, we'll just move it to there. And then in the anim BP, select the control rig node, control rig class, hybrid control rig, compile. And because this control rig class isn't modifying anything yet, everything stays exactly the same. So we should see no difference at all when you're playing the level. It's just the same, character runs around as normal. But now it's using this hybrid control rig class. So just open that up. So in hybrid course, just double click on hybrid control rig. Anything we plug in to forward solve should be run every update of the animation. And we should see that when we actually play in the level. So just as a test, let's just do a silly test. Just search for set transform. And there should be a node called set transform. Click on that. And you can just connect that to the forward solve. Under item, let's just do head. Right, so we're setting the transform of the head bone. What we need to do now is plug a value in. So let's right click, do get transform, set the bone to head. And this is just for people that have never used control rig, you don't know what's going on. So if we plug this transform into there, into the value, it's getting the value or the transform of the head and setting that on the head bone. So that'll make no change whatsoever. But instead, if we plug in, so I've dropped down the value here, plug in the rotation and the translation. But then for scale, let's just type in a value of 4 on each axis. You can see that it's got a big head now. And just so that you know that the control rig node is actually running through your animation blueprint, just play in the editor, and you should see the big head mannequin. Okay, Perfect. So we can delete that and delete that. So what we're going to do is make it so that his head orients towards a specific target in the world. So we're going to make an actor that he's going to look at, and that's just going to be some placeholder actor that we can move around, and it will make the character look at that target.